Hi and welcome back. I'm glad you've joined me for this video. So today we'll be talking about triggers that could lead to a bipolar episode. So I know that bipolar is always with me, and as a result I need to look after it. I always think that it's like I'm looking after a child. I need to warn a child if danger is near. And it's just the same with bipolar. I need to warn it if it might be coming, if there's danger about. So what are triggers? Triggers can be behavioral, they can be a result of circumstances, they can be anything that might wake up my illness. And I have many triggers, I really do. And given now that it's so much in my consciousness, I'm aware of triggers and I'm able to notice them and alert myself. So it's very useful to identify your triggers. Also, triggers are useful in stopping symptoms, and symptoms are very difficult to stop. They are when the illness is in full swing. They are the things that are happening, whereas the triggers are the precursors, so to speak. So I'd like to share with you some of my triggers. There are many more than I'm able to talk about during this conversation, but these are some of the triggers that I've experienced. So the first trigger, which is also a symptom but is really a trigger, is my non-compliance with medication. And I talk about medication in another video, but as a trigger, it's been such a major experience for me, this trigger, and it's resulted in the manifestation of the illness. I used to become non-compliant when I thought I was better. I used to become non-compliant when I convinced myself that the side effects were destroying me and that I couldn't live with these side effects. And I also used to become compliant when I was in rebellion, non-compliant, because I was kind of fighting this virtuous fight against my family, against society, against psychiatry. And stopping or reducing my medication without consulting my psychiatrist was very dangerous. And this trigger could lead to a very slow manifestation of the illness. And in the beginning, it would lead to, a lot of inspiration and a lot more energy, but the medication stopping, and it was very quick that I would become ill. So this is a very important trigger to be aware of. The next trigger I'd like to talk about is seasonal change. Midwinter is a particularly dangerous time for me, and coming into spring, so that kind of period of the year. And that could be because the light changes. It could be also that nature changes. It could be that my moods and behaviors change. I mean, when it's summer, I'm going to be waking up earlier. So at the beginning of spring, the light's changing, so I'm a little bit quicker to rise. But at the same time, if I'm starting to wake up really early, like sometimes I've started waking up at 3:30, 4 in the morning, and start being mesmerized by the birds, then that's a trigger. That's a sign to me that things are a little bit out of whack. Likewise, in winter, if I'm starting to go to bed really early, like 6, 7 at night, and I'm waking up really late. It used to be 6, now it's 8, 9:30. Then this could be a trigger that could lead to a depressive episode. So an acute awareness of seasonal change is absolutely crucial as a potential trigger to lead to an episode for me. The next trigger for me that I would like to talk about is a lack of sleep. And if I find that I don't need to sleep much, that I'm waking up earlier, that I'm going to bed later, that when I sleep it's a very light sleep, that it's not actually rejuvenating, I need to be really careful. In fact, to share with you, when I have been manic on occasion, I've actually spent up to 30 hours really easily awake, with no need to rest whatsoever. And those have been frenzied times. I mean, those have been times wrapped up in the internet, times of like destroying my house, moving things around, rolling up carpets, pulling off intercoms from the walls, not washing up, dishes piled up, just complete mayhem in my house. Also just times where I've been lost, I've just been lost in the early hours of the night, like the times when you really need to be asleep, 3, 4 a.m. in the morning. So this kind of lack of sleep can lead to a total disintegration of my life. Very dangerous, inviting illness in. I want to talk about substance abuse as a trigger, and it's also a symptom, but in this case, a trigger. So I really used to smoke a lot of marijuana. I smoked marijuana from my early 20s into my early 40s. And why did I smoke? Well, I smoked to hide from the fact that I had bipolar. It was part of my denial mechanism. And we'll talk about denial as a subject on its own in another video. But I needed to rely on marijuana as a way of not dealing with my life, of not dealing with the reality of having bipolar. And it was only when I chose health, when I chose that it was useful for me to accept that I had bipolar, that I chose to stop smoking. And I haven't smoked for many years, and I don't miss it at all. I see that it was a crutch that I hung on to where no crutch was actually needed whatsoever. Drugs mess with your chemical status, I guess you could say, with your chemical balance in your life, in your body. And obviously introducing chemicals that are going to mess with that, especially when you already have a chemical imbalance, is pointless. It's very dangerous and it shouldn't be done. So substance abuse is definitely a trigger. It can lead to psychosis. That's well documented, and in my case, it certainly did. Other triggers have included high stress life events and work, loss of relationship or employment, draining or debilitating physical illness, travel involving jet lag. What actually matters is that anything out of the ordinary, anything that's different to everyday life, is a potential trigger. And we should always be aware of that. Any changes, they are warning signs that things are not quite right. So I'd love to hear from you as to what your triggers are, the experience of your triggers, and how they might or might not have led to illness manifesting. You can reach me on info@bipolarcoaching.co.za. Please also visit my website, that's worldwideweb.bipolarcoaching.co.za, and there we can talk a little bit further about these topics. You can contact me and you can learn a little bit more about me. So thank you so much for listening to this video on triggers. I hope it's given you some awareness into what your triggers might be, and I look forward to seeing you on the next video. So thanks so much, keep well, and goodbye.